Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. The concept of being destined for hell is frequently based on moral or theological viewpoints, and interpretations can differ greatly amongst various faiths. That said, the concept is often used metaphorically to describe behaviors or attitudes that lead to negative consequences, alienation, or spiritual emptiness. Depending on your point of view, these 7 shocking indicators may indicate that someone needs to reconsider their life decisions. One of the most concerning indicators that someone may be headed toward moral or spiritual separation is a total absence of empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, a fundamental trait that allows humans to connect, build relationships, and foster community. Without empathy, a person is unable to truly grasp the impact of their actions on others. They might see others not as individuals with emotions and experiences, but as objects or obstacles, leading to behaviors that harm or exploit. Since relationships depend on mutual understanding and concern, those who lack empathy frequently find it difficult to establish sincere connections. Without these qualities, interactions may become transactional or manipulative, with the person focusing solely on their own needs and desires, without regard for how their actions affect others. This detachment from the emotional states of others can lead to a life marked by conflict, loneliness, and dissatisfaction. A lack of empathy can also show up as blatantly apathetic or nasty actions. One may, for instance, take advantage of someone in need, make fun of someone for their pain, or ignore injustice because they lack a feeling of accountability or connection. Over time, this behavior creates a ripple effect, damaging not only the person's relationships but also their own moral and spiritual compass. They might become desensitized to the suffering of others, which can spiral into even more harmful actions. This detachment doesn't only harm others, it also erodes the individual internally. A lack of empathy can isolate someone from their community, as people tend to distance themselves from those who show little concern for others. This isolation can reinforce selfish or harmful tendencies, creating a vicious cycle. Moreover, without empathy, it becomes difficult for someone to grow emotionally or spiritually. Growth often requires reflection on how our actions affect others, and an understanding of shared human experiences, something an empathy-deficient person struggles to achieve. Despite these issues, it's important to note that lacking empathy isn't necessarily permanent. Empathy can be cultivated through intentional efforts to understand others, listen without judgment, and recognize shared humanity. For those who find themselves in a place of emotional detachment, self-reflection, therapy, or spiritual guidance can help rebuild the ability to connect. Recognizing the value of empathy is the first step toward changing behavior and fostering a more compassionate and meaningful way of interacting with others and the world. Habitual dishonesty is a behavior that, when left unchecked, can significantly erode trust and undermine relationships on both personal and societal levels. Lying as a habit goes beyond the occasional falsehood told to avoid minor inconveniences or to spare someone's feelings. Instead, it becomes a pattern of deceit that can have far-reaching consequences for both the individual engaging in it and those affected by their dishonesty. Lying on a regular basis is a sign of a deeper problem in the person's personality. This inclination could be brought on by uncertainty, fear, or a desire to dominate people. Some turn to dishonesty as a coping strategy, a means of hiding their weaknesses or avoiding conflict. They could tell lies to give the impression that they are more successful, strong, or capable than they actually are. In other instances, persistent dishonesty stems from self-centered goals like controlling people for one's own benefit or evading responsibility for one's deeds. Chronic lying can have disastrous long-term effects. When dishonesty is exposed, trust, the cornerstone of any successful relationship, is frequently irreversibly harmed. Even when the habitual liar is telling the truth, friends, family, and coworkers may find it difficult, if not impossible, to believe what they have to say. Isolation results from this breakdown of trust since the liar is more frequently shut out of possibilities for connection and meaningful relationships. For society as a whole, persistent dishonesty can create a climate of distrust and mistrust. Mutual respect and societal cohesiveness are weakened when people lose faith in the integrity of others, whether in interpersonal relationships, economic disputes, or governmental matters. To a great extent, systematic dishonesty can result in corruption, exploitation, and general disenchantment. The personal consequences for the habitual liar are equally severe. Living a life built on lies is exhausting. It requires constant effort to maintain the facade, remember previous falsehoods, and craft new ones to cover any inconsistencies. This mental strain often leads to anxiety, stress, and a growing sense of dissatisfaction with oneself. Over time, the liar may lose their sense of identity, as the line between their real self and the fabricated persona blurs. Habitual dishonesty can also lead to a vicious cycle of bad behavior. Successful lies have the potential to spread the idea that lying works, which encourages more dishonest behavior. In contrast, the liar may feel pressured to tell more lies in order to lessen the consequences when their lies are revealed. This dishonesty cycle keeps people in a routine that is harder and harder to quit. Despite the harm caused by habitual dishonesty, redemption and change are possible. Acknowledging the problem is the first and most crucial step. This requires deep self-reflection and the courage to face the consequences of one's actions. Seeking help from trusted individuals, therapists, or spiritual advisors can provide valuable guidance and support during this process. Rebuilding trust takes time, effort, and consistency. The habitual liar must demonstrate a genuine commitment to honesty through their words and actions, understanding that trust is earned rather than given. In many religious and philosophical traditions, truth is held as a core virtue, essential for personal and spiritual growth. From this perspective, habitual dishonesty is not just a moral failing, but also a barrier to achieving a higher state of being. Embracing truth, even when it is difficult or uncomfortable, allows individuals to live authentically and build meaningful connections with others. By confronting their dishonesty and striving to live truthfully, individuals can transform their lives, repair broken relationships, and create a legacy of integrity and trustworthiness. Prioritizing greed over charity frequently indicates a deeper emphasis on one's own interests at the expense of others' welfare. This behavior is troublesome when the pursuit of self-interest becomes an all-consuming obsession. It is not only about wanting more riches or resources, though those goals may be natural. Greed often blinds individuals to the needs of others, fostering selfishness and a lack of empathy. This can manifest in exploiting others, hoarding resources, or engaging in unethical practices to achieve one's goals. The drive to accumulate more can lead to a distorted sense of fulfillment, where happiness is falsely equated with material possessions or power. People may become estranged from important friendships and community ties as a result of this endeavor. Instead of fostering relationships through mutual support and care, greed breeds mistrust and competitiveness, resulting in a society where people are valued more for what they can offer than for who they are. The emphasis on acquisition can lead to a hollow existence, where no amount of wealth or success feels sufficient because the underlying need for purpose, connection, and genuine joy remains unfulfilled. Greed also has societal consequences. When individuals or groups act out of selfishness, they can exacerbate inequalities, perpetuate injustices, and harm the collective well-being. Resources may be misallocated, opportunities unfairly distributed, and the vulnerable left to suffer, while the greedy accumulate more than they could ever need. On a spiritual or moral level, many traditions view greed as a destructive force that distances people from their higher selves or divine purpose, leading to a life that feels shallow and disconnected. The antidote to greed lies in generosity, cultivating a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. By shifting focus from what one lacks to what one can give, individuals can experience greater fulfillment and joy. Generosity fosters gratitude, strengthens relationships, and contributes to a sense of community and purpose. It transforms the narrative from "how can I take" to "how can I help?" This shift not only benefits others, but also enriches the giver's life in profound and lasting ways. Ultimately, overcoming greed involves recognizing that true wealth lies in connection, compassion, and the positive impact one leaves on the world. Deliberately harming others or engaging in destructive behaviors reveals a profound disconnection from empathy and a disregard for the intrinsic value of others' lives, emotions, and well-being. This can manifest in many ways, from physical violence and verbal abuse to emotional manipulation and social exploitation. Such actions are not merely harmful to the victims, but also deeply corrosive to the person perpetrating them. When someone intentionally inflicts pain or hardship on others, they create a cycle of negativity and distrust that erodes the fabric of relationships, communities, and even their own sense of self. At its core, this behavior stems from a variety of root causes, such as unresolved personal trauma, feelings of inadequacy, or a desperate need to assert control or power. By choosing to act in ways that prioritize personal gain or satisfaction at the expense of others, an individual places themselves at odds with the fundamental principles of kindness, compassion, and coexistence. This not only damages the people directly affected, but also contributes to a wider culture of fear, resentment, and divisiveness. Moreover, the deliberate act of harming others often leads to a cascading series of consequences. The immediate effect is the suffering of the victim, who may experience emotional scars, loss of trust, or physical injury. But beyond the individual, the ripple effects can disrupt social harmony, alienate allies, and ultimately isolate the perpetrator. Over time, those who engage in destructive behaviors may find themselves trapped in a self-reinforcing loop where their actions provoke hostility from others, further deepening their isolation and driving them toward even more harmful behaviors as a means of coping. From a spiritual or moral perspective, choosing to harm others reflects a rejection of shared humanity and an unwillingness to recognize the interconnectedness of all people. Many philosophies and religions emphasize the principle of treating others as we wish to be treated, recognizing that the pain we inflict often finds its way back to us. Acting in opposition to this principle creates an imbalance, not just in relationships, but within the individual's own conscience. Over time, the weight of guilt, shame, or denial can manifest as inner turmoil, affecting one's mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Psychologically, the deliberate harm of others can also point to underlying issues, such as antisocial tendencies or unresolved anger. Often, individuals who hurt others repeatedly may not fully grasp the long-term consequences of their actions or the ways in which they are damaging their own ability to form meaningful connections. This lack of insight perpetuates harmful cycles and reinforces patterns of behavior that alienate them further from the people and values they may ultimately desire to align with. Despite the severity of these behaviors and their outcomes, it's important to remember that deliberate harm is not an irreversible condition. People have the capacity to change, grow, and learn from their mistakes. Recognizing the harm they've caused, taking accountability, and making a genuine effort to repair relationships and adopt new patterns of behavior are the first steps toward healing and redemption. For some, this might involve seeking professional help, such as therapy or counseling, to address the deeper issues driving their behavior. For others, spiritual or community-based approaches might provide the guidance and support needed to break free from destructive tendencies. Ultimately, the deliberate harming of others serves as a profound warning sign of deeper issues that require attention. It signals a need for introspection, empathy, and a willingness to take responsibility for one's actions. By addressing the underlying causes and committing to positive change, it's possible to move away from the path of harm and toward a life rooted in compassion, connection, and a genuine desire to contribute positively to the world. Refusing to take responsibility for one's actions and instead shifting blame onto others is a deeply rooted behavior that often stems from an unwillingness to confront personal faults, shortcomings, or mistakes. This pattern of behavior can manifest in various aspects of life, from interpersonal relationships to professional settings, and can have significant consequences for both the individual and those around them. When someone consistently rejects accountability, they create a barrier to self-improvement. Taking responsibility for one's actions is a crucial step in personal growth, as it allows individuals to learn from their mistakes and make necessary adjustments to avoid repeating them in the future. Without this critical reflection, the individual is likely to remain stagnant, perpetuating the same errors and behaviors that may harm their relationships, reputation, and overall well-being. This avoidance of accountability can also erode trust. Relationships, whether personal, professional, or social, are built on mutual understanding and a shared sense of responsibility. When someone fails to own up to their actions, they undermine this foundation, often leaving others feeling frustrated, resentful, or betrayed. Over time, this can lead to a breakdown in relationships, as people may no longer feel confident in relying on or collaborating with the individual in question. Moreover, the tendency to blame others rather than accept fault can create a toxic cycle. The individual may begin to internalize a narrative in which they are perpetually the victim of circumstances, rather than an active participant in their own life. This victim mentality can breed feelings of helplessness, resentment, and bitterness, further reinforcing the refusal to accept accountability. It can also damage their perception of reality, as they start to believe their own deflections, making it even harder to break free from this cycle. Rejecting accountability is often tied to deeper psychological or emotional issues. Fear of failure, insecurity, or an intense desire to protect one's self-image may drive this behavior. Acknowledging mistakes can feel threatening to someone who ties their worth or identity to being right or perfect. Instead of confronting the discomfort of being wrong, they choose to externalize the blame, shielding themselves from the emotional impact of their actions. While this may provide temporary relief, it ultimately prevents genuine self-awareness and growth. The inability to take responsibility also impacts one's standing in a community or group. Leaders, for example, who fail to acknowledge their mistakes can lose the respect and trust of their teams, as it sets a poor example and creates a culture of evasion and finger-pointing. Similarly, in personal relationships, this behavior can lead to conflicts, as partners or friends may feel unvalued or unacknowledged when their concerns are consistently dismissed or deflected. On a larger scale, rejecting accountability can influence societal structures. When individuals consistently avoid responsibility, it can perpetuate systemic issues, as accountability is a cornerstone of justice, fairness, and progress. Whether in politics, corporate environments, or social systems, a lack of accountability at the individual level can ripple outward, fostering environments where wrongdoing is ignored, excused, or even rewarded. Breaking free from this pattern requires introspection, humility, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. Admitting mistakes is not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of strength and maturity. It allows for open communication, fosters trust, and paves the way for constructive solutions. By taking ownership of their actions, individuals can build stronger, healthier relationships and contribute positively to the communities around them. Overcoming the fear of accountability often begins with small steps, acknowledging minor missteps, seeking feedback, and gradually building the courage to face larger issues. Ultimately, rejecting accountability is not an irreversible trait, but a challenge that can be addressed with conscious effort and self-awareness. Recognizing the harm it causes and taking proactive steps to change can lead to profound personal transformation and a more fulfilling, connected life. Nurturing hate and intolerance involves harboring negative emotions such as anger, prejudice, or resentment toward others based on differences in beliefs, appearances, lifestyles, or identities. This mindset fosters division and creates barriers between individuals and groups, preventing meaningful connection and understanding. Hate often stems from fear, ignorance, or past hurt, and it tends to perpetuate itself by distorting perceptions and fueling cycles of negativity. When someone indulges in intolerance, they may reject the humanity of those who think or live differently, reducing others to stereotypes or enemies. This can lead to actions or words that harm relationships, damage social cohesion, and escalate conflicts. On a personal level, hate and intolerance corrode the mind and soul, consuming energy that could otherwise be spent on empathy, growth, and positive interactions. These emotions can create an echo chamber of negativity, isolating the individual from diverse perspectives and the richness of shared human experiences. By nurturing intolerance, people close themselves off from opportunities to learn, connect, and grow, often becoming trapped in cycles of anger or bitterness that harm their own peace of mind. On a broader societal scale, intolerance contributes to systemic injustice, inequality, and conflict. Societies plagued by hatred and prejudice often experience greater division, unrest, and difficulty in addressing collective challenges. Intolerance can manifest as discrimination, violence, or exclusion, depriving people of dignity and opportunities based on arbitrary differences. It diminishes the potential for harmony and cooperation, stifling progress and perpetuating cycles of harm. Transforming hate and intolerance requires self-awareness, a willingness to confront biases, and an openness to understanding others' perspectives. It involves challenging assumptions, seeking knowledge about different cultures or beliefs, and fostering compassion through shared experiences. Developing tolerance and empathy does not mean agreeing with or condoning all behaviors or ideologies, but rather recognizing the inherent worth of every person and finding ways to coexist respectfully despite differences. By replacing hate and intolerance with understanding and kindness, individuals can create more fulfilling lives for themselves and contribute to a more just and harmonious world. Persistent self-destructive behavior refers to actions or patterns that harm an individual's physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual well-being. These behaviors can manifest in various ways, such as substance abuse, reckless decision-making, neglecting personal health, or engaging in relationships or activities that are toxic and damaging. At its core, self-destructive behavior often stems from underlying issues, such as low self-esteem, unresolved trauma, depression, or a deep sense of unworthiness. These actions might not always appear overtly harmful at first glance, but over time, their cumulative effect can lead to significant harm, not only to the individual, but also to those around them. For example, someone who continuously abuses alcohol or drugs may initially view these substances as an escape or a way to cope with pain or stress. However, as dependency grows, the behavior starts to erode physical health, impair mental clarity, strain relationships, and diminish the ability to function in daily life. Similarly, someone who repeatedly enters harmful or abusive relationships might do so due to a lack of self-respect or a subconscious belief that they deserve such treatment. Over time, these patterns can reinforce a negative self-perception, creating a vicious cycle that is difficult to break. Recklessness is another form of self-destructive behavior, where individuals engage in dangerous activities without regard for the consequences. This could include unsafe driving, risky financial decisions, or even putting themselves in physically dangerous situations. Often, such behavior is rooted in a sense of invincibility, apathy, or a subconscious desire to punish oneself. It's not uncommon for individuals to rationalize these actions as moments of freedom or rebellion, but beneath the surface, there may be an internal struggle with feelings of worthlessness or despair. Neglecting self-care is a subtler yet equally destructive behavior. This can involve failing to eat properly, skipping medical checkups, ignoring mental health needs, or allowing one's living environment to deteriorate. Over time, this neglect can spiral into larger problems, such as chronic illnesses, severe mental health issues, or an inability to maintain a stable and fulfilling life. These patterns might not be immediately recognized as self-destructive, but their long-term impact can be profound. One of the most concerning aspects of persistent, self-destructive behavior is its ability to become normalized. Over time, individuals may start to see these actions as an intrinsic part of who they are, leading to a sense of hopelessness about change. They might believe that they are beyond help, or that they deserve the consequences of their actions, which only deepens the cycle of destruction. This internalized negativity can act as a barrier to seeking support or making meaningful changes, as the individual might feel unworthy of improvement or redemption. However, it's essential to recognize that self-destructive behavior is not an unchangeable destiny. Many individuals who struggle with such patterns are grappling with deep emotional pain or unresolved issues that require attention and care. By identifying the underlying causes of these behaviors, whether through self-reflection, therapy, or spiritual guidance, it is possible to break the cycle. The first step often involves acknowledging the harm being done and understanding that change is not only necessary, but also achievable. Seeking help from trusted friends, professionals, or support groups can provide the tools and encouragement needed to replace destructive habits with healthier, more constructive ones. Ultimately, persistent self-destructive behavior is a call for intervention and healing. It is a sign that something deeper needs to be addressed and resolved. With the right support, patience, and willingness to grow, individuals can overcome these patterns and move toward a life that is healthier, more fulfilling, and aligned with their true potential. Even for those who feel trapped or hopeless, there is always a path forward, one small step at a time. In the end, life is a journey filled with opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation. No matter how far we may feel we've strayed or how lost we might believe we are, the door to change and redemption is always open. Every new day is a chance to rewrite our story, mend what feels broken, and align ourselves with a path of purpose, love, and peace. Remember, you are never alone in this journey. There is always hope, always guidance, and always a way forward. Wassalamu alaikum.